What would happen if the Man of Steel, the symbol of hope for the entire world, suddenly appeared alone in the darkest city on Earth? City drowning in corruption, fear, and despair. Would Gotham even survive him, or would the city swallow him whole? The answer begins as a whisper in the night, a ripple across the rooftops, a shadow moving faster than anything the criminal mind has ever known. The first signs were subtle, almost imperceptible. Citizens on the street noticed a sudden, chilling calm. Gunshots in Crime Alley fell eerily silent. Muggers paused mid-step, their instincts screaming, but their eyes betrayed uncertainty. And then, a figure descended from the clouds. The iconic red cape fluttered against the black sky, contrasting sharply with Gotham's neon decay. He landed in the middle of the deserted street like a god among mortals. Clark Kent's piercing blue eyes scanned the city from atop a crumbling building. He had heard the rumors, hints from newspapers, scattered whispers from reporters, and vague SOS signals traced across satellite feeds. Gotham wasn't just a city in need, it was a living wound. Crime had mutated into something sentient here, and if unchecked, it would spread, infecting the entire state. Clark's jaw clenched. He had faced monsters, tyrants, and cosmic horrors, but this city was different. The air itself seemed heavy with a kind of darkness he had never encountered. His first encounter came faster than anticipated. A gang of armed thugs cornered a young woman in a dim alley, their guns raised, teeth bared with sadistic anticipation. Clark's mind raced through options, strategies, contingencies, and then, without a word, his fist moved with blinding speed, disarming one, sending another crashing into a wall. His presence alone radiating authority and power that neither gun nor blade could challenge. But the moment was fleeting. The city had seen superheroes before, vigilantes with masks and weapons. None had the power of the sun coursing through their veins. How would the criminals, the mob, the silent predators of Gotham, respond to someone who could see them before they blinked? Above, perched on the gargoyle of a nearby cathedral, a shadow observed. One man, tall, brooding, his cape blending seamlessly with the darkness, his cowl hiding every expression. Batman. The whispers of Gotham had reached him long before Superman's arrival. He had prepared for every threat, every invader, every masked interloper that dared cross his city. Yet the sheer presence of this alien force, this godlike being, sent a shiver down his spine. He was aware of Superman's reputation, the legends, the mythos, whispered in Metropolis and beyond. But Gotham was his domain, and he did not yield easily. How would the knight confront God when the rules of fear and control no longer applied? Clark moved through the streets, noticing the subtle cracks, the desperate glances, the terror buried deep in Gotham's veins. He saw a city that had been abandoned by hope, and for the first time he felt a pang of uncertainty. Could sheer strength, mere invincibility, solve what years of strategy and intellect could not? And then, from the darkness, the first trap was set. A cry, sudden and piercing, echoed through the alleys. Clark instinctively soared towards it, only to find a scene more complex than it first appeared. Passages, criminals with experimental weapons, and smoke filling every corridor, chaos arranged with precision. Someone here knew him, or at least had anticipated someone like him. Batman's first move was silent. Cameras flickered, shadows twisted unnaturally, and a voice, gravelly and calm, cut through the chaos. "This is my city, and you do not belong here." Superman paused mid-air, his eyes scanning every corner. There, in the darkness, a figure emerged, calculated, controlled, entirely human, yet commanding the room with an aura that defied explanation. Could a man without superpowers truly stand against the embodiment of invincibility? The standoff lasted mere seconds, but in those seconds, Gotham held its breath. Two forces collided, one fueled by morality, hope, and alien power, the other by strategy, fear, and relentless human determination. Sparks flew in silence, unspoken assessments passed between God and night, and then, almost imperceptibly, a single thought crossed Superman's mind. This city would not bend easily. It would test him, push him beyond limits he had not yet known, and force him to confront not just crime, but the essence of darkness itself. A sudden explosion from a nearby warehouse shattered the tense stillness. Superman's eyes narrowed. Batman melted back into the shadows, watching, analyzing, waiting. The city was alive, and it had a plan of its own, and as the first real firestorm erupted, Clark realized something terrifying. Gotham didn't just challenge heroes, it devoured them, piece by piece, until all that remained were shadows and whispers. And for the first time, Superman wondered if even he might be swallowed. What hidden horrors lurk in a city where the line between predator and prey is blurred? And how would a god respond when the very streets seem alive with malice? Gotham's darkness was not merely a lack of light, it was a presence, palpable, almost sentient, whispering secrets to those willing to listen. Superman could feel it as he descended toward the explosion, the ground trembling beneath him, the acrid scent of smoke and burning debris stinging his senses. But what truly unsettled him wasn't the chaos, it was the precision. Every blast, every barrier, every movement of the fleeing criminals spoke of careful planning, of a mind that anticipated his every instinct. Inside the warehouse, the scene unfolded like a choreographed nightmare. Hostages huddled in corners, eyes wide with terror. Criminals armed with advanced weaponry moved in near-perfect sync, their bullets deflected effortlessly by the flicker of Superman's heat vision. He acted swiftly, yet something gnawed at him. This was more than a mere robbery, more than a gang trying to capitalize on fear. The patterns, the traps, the timing, they all suggested intelligence far beyond street-level criminals. Someone orchestrated this, someone who understood him, someone who knew how to challenge even a god. And then, the voice returned low, controlled, almost amused. "You're strong, faster than any man I've faced, but you're too direct, too obvious." Superman's eyes scanned the dimly lit interior, following the shadowy figure of Batman perched above the central stairwell, observing, calculating. For the first time, Superman didn't feel like the savior. He felt watched, tested, and it was terrifying. "Who are you?" Clark's voice echoed, steady but curious. The criminal activity paused, as though the city itself waited for the answer. Batman's response was simple, yet layered. "I'm the Guardian, the one who keeps Gotham from tearing itself apart. And you might just make it worse." The words struck deeper than any punch, and Superman felt a flicker of doubt. How could he protect a city where darkness wasn't just outside, but inside every mind, every alley, every street? Even with his powers, could he truly make a difference here? Before he could respond, chaos escalated. Explosives set throughout the warehouse began a countdown, their red lights blinking like the heartbeat of a city eager to consume all intruders. Superman reacted, using superspeed to disarm the devices, but each one triggered more. Smoke filled the room, obscuring his vision. Hostages screamed, and then, as if the building itself were breathing, walls collapsed around him, and a trapdoor beneath his feet yawned open. He plummeted into darkness, instincts barely keeping him from impact. Landing in a subterranean tunnel, he saw something that made him pause, a series of intricate markings on the walls. Symbols he had never encountered, glowing faintly in a rhythm that pulsed like a warning. It wasn't just traps anymore. It was a message. Sonyun here didn't just want him to stop crime. They wanted him to understand the nature of Gotham itself. Above ground, Batman watched from the shadows. He knew Superman could clear the warehouse in seconds, yet he allowed the fall to happen. Why? Because strength alone could never solve Gotham's problem. And perhaps, he thought grimly, this alien being had yet to understand the rules of the city he'd entered. Clark's mind raced as he navigated the tunnels. He encountered booby traps, false passages, and illusions designed to disorient him. Every obstacle was layered with psychological intent, cries for help that were decoys, shadows that mimicked movement, whispers that hinted at betrayal among the hostages. Gotham was teaching him, molding him, pushing him to adapt beyond brute force. Deep down, he knew the lesson wasn't over. Then, at the tunnel's end, he stumbled upon something that made him freeze. A symbol etched into the concrete, unmistakable and ancient, a warning of a power buried beneath the city, a darkness older than any gang, any criminal, any mortal mind. And in that moment, Superman understood that the stakes were no longer about saving individual lives. They were about confronting a force that could consume the very soul of Gotham. From the shadows above, Batman's voice whispered once more, almost reverent, "Welcome to my city. Let's see if you survive it. What secrets lie beneath Gotham's streets, where the light of day never reaches and every echo could be a trap?" Superman's senses were heightened. yet even they struggled to pass the subtleties of the darkness that wrapped around him like a living thing. The tunnels beneath the city were more than just passages. They were arteries of fear, conduits of chaos that had fed Gotham's criminal heartbeat for decades. And now, he was inside them, alone, facing a shadow of the city he thought he understood. The air was thick and heavy, carrying scents of mildew, oil, and something older, something almost metallic, like the residue of old machinery mixed with iron. Superman's eyes glowed softly as he scanned the walls, seeing cracks, inscriptions, and faint traces of a design that hinted at a hidden labyrinth. But this wasn't just a maze, it was an intelligence at work, anticipating his every step. A faint scuttling echoed from the shadows. Small, agile creatures, or perhaps drones, started across the floor, vanishing before he could strike. They were designed to harass, delay, and steady him. Every trap, every echo, every shadow tested his perception, forcing him to engage not with his strength, but with his mind. And then, a voice, soft, almost human, yet distant, bouncing off the tunnel walls like a spectral guide. "You're not in Metropolis anymore, alien. Here, we learn quickly, or we die." Superman froze. The words carried authority, knowledge, and a warning he could not ignore. Someone here understood him, understood the rules of his power, the limits of his morality, the psychology of a hero raised in a city bathed in sunlight. He followed the voice, moving cautiously, aware that every misstep could trigger explosives, collapsing ceilings, or worse. Suddenly the passage opened into a vast subterranean chamber, far larger than he expected. Pipes ran like veins along the ceiling, and shadows danced across the walls. And in the center, standing as if awaiting him, was a figure cloaked in darkness. Not human, not entirely, yet familiar in form. A symbol of mastery over this city. A sentinel who had mastered fear itself. Batman emerged from the shadows, his cowl reflecting the dim light. "You can't fix Gotham with fists alone," he said, his voice calm but unyielding. "This city is a living entity, and it's been feeding on pain for centuries. You can't just erase it. You can't just fly over it and throw your weight around. You need to understand at every corner, every alley, every crime." Superman's response was measured. "I've faced tyrants, monsters, gods. I've carried the weight of worlds. But this is different. It's like the city itself is alive, shaping its own destiny through fear and corruption." Batman stepped closer, his shadow stretching impossibly long across the floor. "And that's exactly why you need guidance. I'm not just a vigilante. I'm the only person who's ever made Gotham bend to some form of order. And if you can survive it, if you can learn from it, maybe you can save more than just lives. Maybe you can save the soul of this city." Superman's jaw tightened. The challenge was more complex than he had anticipated. Strength alone wouldn't suffice. Every instinct told him to act, to strike, to eliminate threats. But Batman's words lingered. The city demanded more than power. It demanded understanding. Before Superman could respond, alarms echoed from deeper within the chamber. Lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. Figures emerged from the darkness, masked, armed, moving with deadly precision. The subterranean network was alive, and it had its own defenders. Superman prepared to engage, but a sudden, subtle gesture from Batman stopped him mid-motion. "Watch first," Batman whispered. "Learn how they think, then act." The world slowed, and Superman observed. The attackers moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's positions, using traps, shadows, and fear to manipulate outcomes. And in that moment, he realized something terrifying. Gotham's darkness wasn't just physical, it was tactical, psychological, nearly impossible to overcome without insight into its intricate patterns. A flicker of movement from the far side of the chamber caught Superman's eye. A figure he had not anticipated, a new layer of the city's defense lurking, observing, waiting. And for the first time, he felt the gnawing doubt of a hero confronting a city that might be stronger than him in ways he could not measure. Batman's shadow fell beside him, unyielding and silent. "Gotham doesn't forgive mistakes. Don't make one." The chamber shook suddenly, dust falling from the ceiling. Superman's eyes widened. Something massive stirred deeper in the tunnels, something ancient, something that had been waiting for both of them. And the ground beneath them shifted, a low rumble vibrating through the soles of his feet, echoing like a heartbeat. What lies beneath Gotham that even Batman fears to confront? Superman could feel it in his bones. The rumble wasn't mechanical. It wasn't the city settling, it was alive. Something ancient, primal, and patient, awakened by the presence of a force unlike anything it had ever known. His eyes scanned the shadows, tracing the pulse of movement, but the tunnel seemed endless, twisting back on themselves, concealing whatever slumbered below. Batman's stance was rigid, his cape flowing like a shadow merged with the darkness. "It's been waiting for a challenge," he murmured, almost to himself. "Not just any challenge, but one worthy." His voice carried both warning and respect. Superman realized that here, in the very veins of the city, Batman was no longer a detective or vigilante. He was a guardian standing at the edge of a primeval abyss. Then it began. The subtle tremor of massive limbs, scraping stone and metal, sending reverberations through the tunnels. The masked attackers faltered, weapons trembling in their hands. Something beyond comprehension had awakened, and every instinct screamed danger. Superman's heart beat faster, a rare human echo he felt despite his invulnerability. Gotham's underworld had its monsters, yes, but this was beyond fear, beyond calculation. From the shadows, a deep, resonant growl emerged, vibrating through the chamber walls. The masked attackers scattered, screaming as the ground erupted beneath them. Dust and debris shot into the air as a monstrous silhouette revealed itself, a creature of Gotham's darkest mythos, a hybrid of organic and mechanical, with limbs long enough to crush walls and eyes that burned with a predatory intelligence. It had been forgotten by the world above, buried beneath decades of filth and crime, waiting for someone, anything, to awaken it. Superman's initial impulse was to strike, to neutralize immediately, but Batman raised a hand. "Not yet," he said calmly. "You don't just fight here, you adapt." The creature lunged, faster than its massive frame suggested, crushing the ground where Superman had just hovered. Dust and rubble obscured the air, and Superman realized with a jolt that sheer strength would not be enough. Its movements were calculated, almost surgical, anticipating his counterattacks before they happened. The city had taught it, trained it, sharpened it for this very confrontation. Clark's eyes glowed red, heat vision igniting, but the creature anticipated the attack, dodging with uncanny agility, its limbs smashing columns and sending waves of destruction around it. He tried again, striking with super speed, each blow faster than the eye could follow, yet every hit seemed to meet an equally precise counter. He was fighting not just a monster, but the embodiment of Gotham's darkness, a creature bred by fear, strategy, and centuries of human corruption. Batman moved like a shadow along the walls, placing traps, adjusting the environment, guiding Superman silently without words. His knowledge of the tunnels, the weaknesses in the structure, the psychology of the creature all became vital. Clark realized that here, intellect and instinct were as crucial as raw power. "Use your mind, not just your fists," Batman instructed, his voice low but commanding. "This is the way Gotham survives." Superman nodded, adjusting his approach. He began to analyze the creature, searching for patterns, weaknesses, behavioral cues. And then, in the midst of the chaos, a flicker of recognition struck him. The creature reacted not only to threats, but to fear, to hesitation, to doubt. Superman's eyes softened, his voice calm as he spoke, almost instinctively. "You don't have to be alone. You don't have to fight like this." The creature paused, its massive head tilting, as though passing his words. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. It hesitated, giving Superman the opening to redirect its momentum into the tunnel wall, staggering it just enough to survive the next wave of destruction. Batman's eyes narrowed, impressed. "Not bad," he muttered. "But remember, this city tests every hero, and it doesn't stop." The creature roared, louder than the previous tremors, and from the depths of the tunnels, an even darker vibration began, a resonance that wasn't just one monster, but a network, an intelligence buried beneath Gotham, now stirring. Superman's jaw tightened. He realized, with a chill running down his spine, that what they faced was not just a single beast, but the first glimpse of a force that had been shaping Gotham's destiny long before either of them had arrived. And somewhere deep within, Batman's shadowed gaze met Superman's, his tone cold but unwavering. "If you can survive this, you may just survive Gotham." What happens when the darkness itself seems to fight back, shaping the very air and stone around you? Superman could feel it. The tunnels beneath Gotham were alive in a way that defied logic. Every movement he made seemed to ripple through the network, triggering reactions he hadn't anticipated. The creature they faced wasn't an isolated anomaly. It was part of a larger, orchestrated system, a labyrinth of fear and power, and somewhere deeper, something ancient and intelligent was pulling the strings. Superman hovered, scanning the chamber with heat vision, trying to identify patterns. The monstrous creature had regained its footing, its glowing eyes locking onto him with calculated malice. Yet he noticed something subtle. It hesitated whenever he moved with calm, controlled intent. Every panic-driven action made it stronger. Every deliberate, measured motion gave him leverage. Gotham was teaching him a lesson he had never learned in Metropolis or on alien worlds. Power without patience was meaningless. Batman's voice cut through the chaos. It feeds on chaos. Disrupt its rhythm, and you gain the advantage. He dropped silently from a high ledge, landing beside Superman, and gestured toward the intricate network of tunnels leading deeper into the city's underbelly. We need to push it back, but not destroy it. The city has its own way of balancing things. Kill it and you might awaken something worse. Superman's mind raced. He had faced countless threats with lethal force, but Gotham wasn't a normal battleground. Here, destruction alone could be catastrophic. Every blow to the creature's massive body caused a chain reaction in the tunnels, triggering collapses, releasing hidden traps, and setting off alarms that echoed through miles of subterranean pathways. And then he realized the most unsettling truth. The tunnels themselves seemed to adapt, shifting subtly, almost as if alive. A sudden tremor threw him off balance. From above, debris rained down. The creature lunged again, faster this time, striking with limbs that crushed stone like paper. Superman barely managed to counter, redirecting its momentum into a supporting pillar that groaned under the pressure. Dust and rubble filled the chamber, obscuring his vision, and the faint hum of hidden mechanisms vibrated through the walls. Something deeper was awakening, something far older than even the darkest corners of human imagination. Batman moved strategically, using the shadows and environment to guide Superman without direct contact. He placed subtle traps and distractions, forcing the creature into positions that gave Superman the upper hand. "You can't just fight it," Batman whispered. "You have to understand it, learn its pattern, think like it." Superman adjusted, slowing his movements, observing the creature as it shifted and reacted. He noticed the faint glimmer of intelligence behind its aggression, not mindless rage, but a predatory calculation. And then, in a moment of clarity, he spoke, not with force, but with calm authority. "You're not a mindless beast. There's purpose behind your actions. Show me." The creature paused, as if passing the words, a subtle shift in its stance, signaling hesitation. Superman took the opportunity to redirect it again, moving with precision and foresight, guiding it into a trap Batman had set earlier. The chamber echoed with the impact of the massive body hitting reinforced stone, yet it remained alive, snarling and calculating, undeterred by pain or damage. And then came the realization that froze him for a fraction of a second. The network of tunnels, the monsters, the traps, they were only a fraction of the city's defense. Somewhere beneath Gotham, in its deepest veins, something even greater was stirring, responding to the presence of a being who could rival gods. Superman felt it in the vibrations of the earth, in the whispers of air moving through stone corridors, in the subtle pulse of fear and anticipation radiating from every wall. Batman's shadow loomed beside him. "You're learning fast," he said quietly, "but you're not ready. Not yet. Gotham has a way of humbling even gods. Every time you think you understand it, it changes." A sudden, deafening roar shook the chamber. The walls vibrated violently, dust cascading from the ceiling. The creature they fought was only the first wave. Deeper in the tunnels, something massive moved, a presence that dwarfed even the monster before them. A force of darkness so primal it seemed to exist outside time. Superman's eyes widened as he realized the truth. Gotham was alive in ways he could barely comprehend, and he had just awakened its first response to his intrusion. Batman's gaze was steady, cold, unyielding. "Welcome to the heart of Gotham," he said, voice low, almost reverent. "And we're only getting started." What force could lie beneath Gotham that even Batman's unparalleled knowledge of the city struggles to contain? Superman felt it now, a tremor far more deliberate than the chaotic movements of the creature before them. It wasn't just deliberate, it was aware, observing, measuring, testing. The air itself seemed to thicken, carrying an oppressive weight that pressed against his chest. Gotham's underworld was more than crime and corruption. It was a living intelligence, and it had noticed him. Superman's eyes scanned the labyrinthine tunnels ahead. The previous creature had been only a prelude, a guardian, perhaps even a test. The deeper he ventured, the more subtle the city's defenses became. Metal plates shifted along walls, wires hummed with hidden energy, and shadows bent unnaturally, almost as if anticipating his next move. Every instinct screamed caution. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was an induction into a city that demanded more than strength. Batman's voice, calm and calculated, broke through the tension. The deeper you go, the more it responds to your presence. You can't just smash through. You have to think, predict, and adapt. That's the only way to survive here. They moved in tandem, one figure of godlike power, the other a master of shadows. The juxtaposition was striking. Superman's heat vision cut through darkness, revealing details the eye might have missed. Subtle runes etched into the tunnel walls, grooves indicating hidden traps, small vents releasing smoke to disorient intruders. Batman's hand gestures and subtle shifts guided Superman around hazards, forcing him to approach each movement with precision. Then, from a deeper chamber, came a pulse of energy unlike anything Superman had sensed. It vibrated through the tunnels, brushing against his very being, tugging at something primal within him. He froze, eyes narrowing. This wasn't merely a physical threat, it was almost psychological. The city itself was challenging him, probing his mind, testing his resolve, drawing him into a confrontation far beyond muscle and speed. Suddenly, the ground beneath them gave way. Superman reacted instinctively, catching Batman mid-fall as debris cascaded around them. The chamber they had entered was massive, its scale unlike any cavern he had ever seen, walls etched with symbols of power and decay. Shadows moved in the corners, shifting unnaturally, as if the chamber itself were alive. And then he saw it, a colossal form, barely visible through the haze, looming at the center, like the heart of Gotham's darkness. The entity stirred. Its presence was suffocating, a perfect synthesis of menace and intelligence. The creature's massive limbs shifted slowly, deliberately, and as if they could be called that, burned with an understanding that surpassed mere instinct. Superman's jaw tightened. He had faced monsters, tyrants, and even cosmic beings, but never had he confronted something that felt as though it was aware of him. Batman stepped beside him, voice low and firm. This is the core. Everything you've seen until now, traps, monsters, chaos, it's all been preparation. This is what Gotham feeds on, what Gotham protects. If you survived this, you may understand the city. If not, his gaze met Superman's, then you become part of it. The colossal form took a step forward, and the ground trembled beneath its weight. Dust and debris rose, swirling like a storm. Superman's mind raced. How could he fight something so vast, so intelligent, so attuned to the darkness around it? And yet, even in the midst of fear, he felt the stirring of determination. He had faced impossible odds before. He had always found a way. But Gotham was different. Here, strength was insufficient. Here, every action had consequence. Every impulse could be used against you. The city had a rhythm, a pulse, a plan. And now, Superman realized with a shiver, he was dancing to it, whether he liked it or not. A low, reverberating hum filled the chamber, echoing like a heartbeat through the tunnels. The colossal form shifted, revealing the outline of its shape, a grotesque fusion of machine, shadow, and organic muscle, perfectly attuned to the labyrinth around it. Its gaze fixed on Superman, and in that instant, the air seemed to thicken, suffocating and electric all at once. Batman's hand brushed the edge of his cape. Do not underestimate it. Not everything here is tangible. Some of it exists only to manipulate, to control, to test. Superman steadied himself, eyes glowing faintly, heart steady despite the tension. Then let's find out, he said, voice low, resolute. And with that, the first strike of the ultimate confrontation began. Two forces, one of alien power, one of urban mastery, facing the living darkness of Gotham in a battle that would decide not only survival, but the very soul of the city. What does it mean to face a city that fights back, not with weapons or minions, but with its very essence? Superman hovered for a moment, taking in the colossal form before him. The creature's movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial, as if it had been waiting for this encounter for centuries. The air itself vibrated with a tension that clung to every fiber of his being, making each breath heavy, each thought a challenge. Gotham was alive, aware, and now it had focused all of its malice and cunning on him. Batman's shadow fell beside Superman, unmoving, as if he were part of the darkness itself. "Remember," he said quietly, "this isn't a fight in the traditional sense. You can overpower the creature physically, but the city will find another way to strike, another way to trap, another way to punish. Your strength is meaningless if you don't understand it." Superman's mind raced. He had faced enemies who relied on overwhelming force, who threatened cities with cataclysmic power, who demanded compliance through fear. But Gotham was different. The challenge wasn't just survival, it was comprehension. Every pulse of the creature, every tremor in the ground, every shifting shadow carried a lesson in strategy, patience, and perception. Then the creature moved. Its massive limbs crushed stone effortlessly, and a wave of force radiated outward, knocking Superman against a wall with surprising intensity. He countered immediately, using super speed to rebound and strike. But the creature's reaction was instantaneous, calculated, as though it anticipated his every move. It was testing him, probing him, learning him, much like Batman had warned. A sudden explosion in a far corner of the chamber drew Superman's attention, and in that brief distraction, the creature lunged. Its massive claws slashed through the air, leaving streaks of destructive energy in their wake. Superman barely avoided the strike, countering with a heat vision blast that illuminated the chamber like the midday sun. Yet the creature absorbed the light, moving with unnatural resilience, unharmed, undeterred, its gaze locked on him with eerie comprehension. Batman's voice was a calm anchor amidst the chaos. "Focus on patterns, not force. Let it guide you, then redirect. Don't fight blindly. Learn." Superman nodded, slowing his movements, letting instinct guide him instead of raw power. He observed the creature's strikes, its hesitations, its tendencies. He began to predict its actions, to read the rhythm of its assaults. And in that moment, something remarkable happened. The creature faltered, just slightly, and Superman seized the opening. With precise force, he redirected its momentum into a pillar, staggering it enough to create a temporary gap. But the victory was fleeting. From deeper within the tunnels, another tremor rose, stronger, more deliberate. A low, resonant hum echoed through the chamber, vibrating against the walls and reverberating in Superman's chest. This was no mere animal or construct. It was the heart of Gotham's darkness, responding to his presence, adapting, preparing. Batman's eyes narrowed. That hum. It's the core. Whatever you just hit, it's connected. And it's not alone. It's calling the rest of the city to attention. Superman's jaw tightened. He realized, with a weighty certainty, that this was far more than a battle with a single creature. Gotham itself was alive, orchestrating its defenses with intelligence, feeding on fear, and testing him at every turn. Even his alien perception, his superhuman reflexes, his moral certainty, none of it guaranteed survival here. The chamber shook violently. Dust and debris rained down as smaller constructs. Shadows, animated by the same intelligence, emerged from cracks and vents. They moved with lethal precision, flanking him, forcing him to split attention between multiple threats at once. Each step was dangerous, each movement scrutinized. The city was a chessboard, and he was a single piece attempting to navigate a game without rules. Superman's mind raced, scanning possibilities. He could crush them all, obliterate the smaller enemies, focus on the colossal form, but doing so risked triggering further reactions from the city's core. And then he realized the hardest truth. Brute force could not win here. Adaptation, understanding, and patience were the weapons he needed, qualities he had relied on less frequently than sheer strength in his battles. Batman's shadow loomed beside him, silent, almost reassuring in its presence. "You can do this," he said, voice firm. "But you have to think like the city. You have to become part of it, even if just for a moment. Otherwise," he didn't finish. The rumble from the tunnels answered for him. "Otherwise, Gotham consumes everything." The massive creature advanced again, flanked by smaller shadows, its movements deliberate, calculating, almost sentient. Superman's eyes glowed with faint heat vision. His jaw set, heart steady. He understood now that this confrontation was not just about strength, not just about heroism, it was about comprehension, about navigating a darkness that refused to be fought conventionally. And as he prepared to engage once more, a tremor surged from deep below, stronger than before, shaking the very foundations of the chamber. Superman realized with a jolt, the city was awakening fully now, responding to him as a single unified intelligence. Gotham was no longer merely a backdrop, it was a player, a force, a test of everything he was. What happens when the city itself becomes your adversary? Superman could feel it now. The very walls, the tunnels, even the air seemed to pulse with intent, a deliberate, almost malevolent intelligence guiding the chaos around him. Every movement, every instinct was mirrored, countered, and anticipated. This wasn't just a fight against creatures or traps, it was a confrontation with Gotham itself, alive in ways that no hero had ever experienced. The colossal creature at the center of the chamber roared, its limbs crashing against the walls and floor with a resonance that made Superman's ears ring. But now, unlike before, the attacks seemed coordinated, choreographed by an unseen hand. The shadows around it moved in patterns, almost communicating with each other and reacting to his every action. Superman realized with a sinking certainty, this was a symphony of fear and precision, and he was the soloist forced to play along. Batman's silhouette appeared atop a fractured pillar, eyes sharp and calculating. "You can't just overpower it," he said, voice low but firm. "You'll have to anticipate, redirect, and control the flow. Force alone will only feed the city." Superman exhaled slowly, focusing. He slowed his movements, observing, learning the rhythm of the attacks. The shadows lunged and retreated. The colossal form struck and staggered, and the air hummed with the pulse of hidden mechanisms. He began to identify patterns, the pauses, the subtle pre-strike adjustments, the environmental cues embedded in the chamber itself. For the first time, he realized he could fight with Gotham rather than against it, if only he could read its will correctly. The first breakthrough came when he redirected the momentum of the colossal creature into a series of collapsing pillars, not destroying them entirely, but using them to destabilize its stance. Smaller shadows reacted, rushing to compensate, and in that moment, Superman struck strategically, sending one wave after another into pre-calculated positions. He was no longer merely reacting. He was participating, influencing the battlefield through understanding rather than raw strength. Batman's voice cut through the tumult again. "Good, but don't get comfortable. This city never stops testing." Superman nodded, eyes scanning the chamber. His thoughts raced as he considered the implications. Gotham wasn't just alive, it was intelligent, adaptive, and capable of learning from him. Every strike, every dodge, every decision he made shaped the city's response, as if it were a living, breathing organism molding the outcome of the battle. It wasn't enough to win a fight. He had to understand it first. Suddenly, a new tremor rippled through the ground. From deep beneath, a shadow emerged larger than the first, darker, more deliberate. Its presence radiated authority, the unmistakable mark of the city's heart. Superman's chest tightened as he recognized the truth. The battle had escalated far beyond anything he had faced. The core of Gotham itself was awakening. Batman's expression, visible in the dim light, was grave. "This is it," he said. "The city's true form. Not just monsters or traps. Not just crime and fear. Its heart, and you're standing in front of it." Superman's resolve hardened. He had faced tyrants who commanded armies, monsters that consumed worlds, and cosmic forces that bent reality. Yet Gotham demanded something else entirely: insight, patience, and adaptability. And if he could master this, he might not only survive, but begin to save a city that had been lost to darkness for generations. The colossal figure shifted, and the smaller shadows converged, forming a wall of coordinated assault. Superman braced himself, calculating every movement, every angle, every opening. For the first time, he realized he was not alone in this fight. Batman's presence, the city's rhythm, and even the creature's patterns were all part of a complex puzzle. He had to solve it in real time, or risk being consumed entirely. Then, a subtle vibration from the depths. Something vast was moving, faster than expected, approaching the chamber. The shadows froze momentarily, the colossal form stiffened, and the air grew heavy, as if the city itself were holding its breath. Superman's eyes narrowed. Whatever was coming, It wasn't just another test, it was the true heart of Gotham, awakening fully, and now it was aware of him. Batman's shadow stretched across the debris-strewn floor. "Ready yourself," he said, voice grim. "This is where heroes are made, or broken." And with that, the chamber erupted into a cacophony of motion, shadows, and raw power as the city revealed its ultimate force. Superman's heart beat steadily, his gaze locked on the approaching presence, knowing that the next moments would define not just his survival, but the fate of Gotham itself. What would you do if the very heart of his city rose to challenge you, testing your body, mind, and soul all at once? Superman's senses were overwhelmed. The colossal creature that had served as Gotham's initial test now paused as the true force. Awakened beneath them a shadow, larger than anything he had ever faced, massive enough to fill the chamber with its presence. Yet fluid, shifting, almost like smoke given form. The air vibrated with intent, and even Superman's super hearing caught faint whispers that seemed to echo from the tunnels themselves. Batman stepped closer, his cape flowing like a living shadow around him. "This isn't just a fight," he said, voice low. "This is a reckoning. Gotham doesn't just punish the unworthy, it teaches the worthy. And right now, it's deciding if you belong." Superman felt the weight of the city pressing on him, more oppressive than any tyrant, more demanding than any warlord. The tunnels weren't just architecture, they were tendrils, extensions of an intelligence that had learned from centuries of human cruelty and suffering. Every movement he made seemed anticipated, every instinct mirrored and countered. The monstrous shadow ahead pulsed with life, and its form constantly shifted, as if the walls themselves were shaping it. Without warning, the shadow struck. The force of the impact sent Superman crashing against the wall, dust and debris raining down around him. He countered immediately, striking back with heat vision, but the form absorbed the attack, dissipating into tendrils of darkness that twisted through the chamber like smoke in wind. It was a battle unlike any he had faced. Speed, strength, and durability were irrelevant. Understanding, intuition, and timing were the only tools that mattered. Batman's hand brushed against the wall, fingers tracing the subtle grooves and etchings in the stone. "You have to read it," he whispered. "See the patterns, anticipate the shifts. Don't fight it directly, flow with it, like water navigating rocks." Superman closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. He had fought with intellect before, but never against a force that was simultaneously physical and psychological. Every strike, every block, every step had to be considered carefully, or the city itself would punish him. The shadows moved like extensions of the core, rapping and striking with perfect coordination, forcing him to redirect, leap, and anticipate in ways that tested even his superhuman reflexes. A sudden, piercing vibration ran through the chamber. Superman's eyes widened as he saw cracks forming along the walls, subtle but deliberate. The shadow was not just attacking it, was reshaping the environment, manipulating the space itself to force him into vulnerability. And yet, amid the chaos, Batman's presence provided a steady anchor, guiding him through angles, weak points, and calculated responses. Superman struck, not with raw force, but with strategy. He guided the shadow into a narrow passage, restricting its movement, then redirected it into one of the reinforced pillars Batman had prepared. The impact was massive, shaking the chamber, but the creature remained alive, its tendrils spreading like ink in water. The city had not yielded, it had adapted. Batman's gaze met his. "It's learning from you, just as you're learning from it. Every move matters. Don't underestimate the intelligence behind the darkness." Superman's jaw tightened. He realized, for the first time, that this battle was not just physical. It was a test of character, patience, and perception. Gotham wasn't merely a city to be saved. It was a puzzle to be solved, a force to be understood. And as the shadow reformed, larger, faster, more deliberate, he knew that the next strike would push him to his absolute limits. Then the ground beneath them shook violently. A new tremor surged, different from the previous ones, faster, sharper, more insistent. The shadows froze, the colossal form stiffened, and the chamber seemed to contract, the walls bending as if the city itself was squeezing the space. Superman's eyes narrowed. He understood now. The core was no longer testing, it was asserting dominance. Gotham was alive, aware, and it had chosen this moment to challenge him fully. Batman's voice cut through the tension, calm but with an edge of warning. Brace yourself. This is the heart of Gotham, in its purest form. If you falter, the city won't just reject you, it will consume you. Superman inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the city, the pressure of the shadows, the intelligence of the darkness pressing against his mind and body. And then he leapt forward, ready to meet the heart of Gotham on its own terms, knowing that the next few minutes would define not just his victory, but his understanding of a city unlike any other. What would happen if the very ground beneath your feet fought against you, reshaping itself to test your resolve? Superman could feel the pressure of Gotham's core intensifying. The massive shadow, no longer a single form, but a shifting network of darkness, stretched through the chamber like living veins of the city. Each movement it made warped the walls, twisted the tunnels, and sent seismic vibrations that rattled his bones. This wasn't a creature he could overpower, it was an intelligence manifest in stone, air, and shadow. Batman's silhouette moved fluidly along a fractured ledge, eyes scanning the environment with surgical precision. "This is what I mean," he murmured. "Every strike, every block, every instinct you rely on it, will be tested here. You need more than strength. You need perception, adaptability, and patience." Superman's jaw tightened. He had faced tyrants who could crush planets, monsters that devoured stars, and armies that bent reality itself. Yet Gotham demanded something entirely different: comprehension. He realized that the shadows weren't just attacking, they were observing, analyzing, and predicting. His every movement influenced the city's response, and in turn, the city was teaching him, guiding him toward understanding its hidden rules. The core pulsed, and the shadows surged, striking simultaneously from multiple angles. Superman countered with precise red heat vision beams, melting metal reinforcements, but the tendrils of darkness twisted, dodging, flowing like liquid, and striking back. Every contact sent shockwaves through the chamber, testing his balance and forcing him to anticipate far beyond instinct. A subtle shift in the shadows revealed a weak-pointed pattern Superman could exploit, but it required timing, coordination, and trust in Batman's guidance. "Now," Batman whispered, gesturing toward a narrow gap in the darkness. Superman adjusted, redirecting the massive tendrils into the confined space. The shadows struggled, compressed by the geometry of the tunnels, and for the first time, the core seemed to hesitate. Superman seized the moment, using controlled force to guide a portion of the darkness toward a reinforced wall, collapsing a section of the chamber. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring vision, but the tactic worked. The shadows recoiled, giving him and Batman precious seconds. Yet the core's hum didn't fade. It grew stronger, more deliberate, more aware. The city itself was alive, responding not with chaos, but with intelligence. Batman's voice cut through the rumble. "You're learning. Good, but don't get cocky. The city's heart doesn't forgive mistakes." Superman's eyes scanned the chamber. The tendrils of darkness were reassembling, faster and more coordinated than before. He realized that the city was adapting to his tactics, evolving with each move he made. His mind raced. He couldn't rely on force alone. He had to anticipate the city's evolution, predict its adaptations, and act preemptively. A sudden vibration ran through the chamber, stronger than any previous tremor. The colossal form at the center pulsed, reshaping itself into something larger, more imposing, its tendrils reaching outward like extensions of Gotham itself. Superman's eyes widened as he understood the horrifying truth. This was not just a test of strength or skill, it was a test of will. The city was judging him, weighing his intentions, and preparing to consume anything that faltered. Batman's shadow fell beside him, unwavering. "You're close," he said, voice tight. "But remember, Gotham doesn't yield easily. You need to anticipate the heart, not just react to it." Superman's jaw clenched. He inhaled deeply, centering himself amid the chaos, focusing not on attacking, but on reading, understanding, and anticipating. The shadows lunged again, faster, sharper, more deliberate, and the core pulsed, responding to every motion. Superman moved with precision, guiding the tendrils, exploiting openings, and predicting the patterns of the city's living intelligence. And then, a low, resonant vibration surged through the chamber, shaking the ceiling. The entire network of shadows and the colossal form shifted in unison, revealing the true heart of Gotham at last, a force so vast, so intelligent, and so ancient that even Superman felt a flicker of fear. The city had awakened fully, and it had chosen to challenge him completely. Batman's voice was calm but intense. "Brace yourself. The heart is here, and it's about to decide whether you belong or whether you become another shadow beneath." The streets. Superman's eyes glowed, his muscles tensed, and for the first time in this battle, he realized that survival wasn't about strength, speed, or even intellect. It was about understanding the soul of a city that refused to be conquered. What would you do if the city itself judged you, weighing your every action, every intention, and every choice? Superman could feel it now. The very air pulsed with consciousness, a rhythm that was neither mechanical nor entirely organic. It was Gotham itself, alive in ways beyond comprehension, testing him at every level, physically, mentally, emotionally. The colossal form at the chamber's center now towered like a manifestation of the city's will. Tendrils of shadow extending into every corner, probing, analyzing, judging. Batman stepped forward, his silhouette a constant anchor against the shifting darkness. "This isn't about strength," he said quietly. "It's about understanding. Anticipate its logic. Think ahead. Don't just strike, communicate, predict, and adapt." Superman's eyes scanned the chamber. The tendrils of darkness moved with precision, attacking and retracting, creating patterns that, when observed carefully, revealed subtle inconsistencies, tiny openings that suggested a conscious strategy. He realized, slowly, that brute force would only escalate the city's response. What Gotham wanted was not destruction. It wanted engagement, comprehension, submission to its rules, and yet paradoxically, cooperation. The shadows lunged again, faster than before, striking with synchronized precision. Superman countered, using heat vision not to destroy, but to guide the tendrils along paths that forced them to loop back into themselves, exploiting the very choreography the city used. Against him, the air vibrated with the echoes of impact, reverberating through the tunnels and rattling the dust from the ceilings. Batman observed silently, adjusting subtle mechanisms within the chamber that influenced the battlefield's shifting walls, dropping barriers and redirecting the movements of smaller shadows. "Good," he murmured, "but it's learning from you. Every move you make becomes part of its adaptation. Don't get predictable." Superman's mind raced. He realized the city was a puzzle unlike any he had ever encountered. The colossal form pulsed rhythmically, almost communicating with him through subtle vibrations and energy pulses. The tendrils extended toward him in ways that seemed simultaneously aggressive and probing, as if testing the limits of his reactions. He slowed his movements, observing, waiting for a pattern to emerge. Each pulse of the core carried information, the city's expectations, its vulnerabilities, its strategies. By interpreting them, he could anticipate the next assault rather than merely react. He felt the first true connection, a dialogue, silent but profound, between hero and city. The shadows surged again, but this time, Superman met them with a combination of force and foresight. He redirected tendrils into the reinforced pillars, collapsing sections strategically, while leaving other pathways intact to avoid triggering further escalation. The colossal form hesitated, its pulse slowing for the first time. The city was adapting, responding, and he was learning its language. Batman's voice broke the tense silence. "You're close. Focus on the heart. It's vulnerable, but only too understanding. Anything else will be consumed." Superman's gaze hardened. He knew what he had to do. Strength alone would not win this battle. He had to become attuned to the rhythm of the city, to anticipate its moves, to act with foresight and precision. Slowly, methodically, he began to maneuver through the chamber. His actions, less reactive, more symbiotic with the environment. The colossal form stirred once more, tendrils lashing out in seemingly chaotic patterns, but now, Superman recognized the logic beneath the chaos. Every movement was predictable if approached with comprehension rather than brute force. He positioned himself strategically, guiding the shadows into containment zones, weakening the form's extensions and drawing the creature toward a central focus point. A low, resonant vibration filled the chamber, louder than before. The city was responding, adjusting, testing his patience, resolve, and intelligence. Superman's chest tightened, heart steady, eyes glowing faintly. He understood. The final phase was approaching. The heart of Gotham would soon fully engage, forcing him to confront not just the creature or the shadows, but the city's essence itself. Batman's shadow fell beside him, silent but commanding. Brace yourself. The heart doesn't forgive hesitation. The moment you falter, the city will claim you. Superman nodded, muscles coiled, mind sharp, ready to meet Gotham at its core, not as an invader, but as a participant in its living, breathing, ever-shifting trial. What would you do if the city itself demanded your submission or your destruction? Superman could feel the pulse now, stronger, more deliberate. The chamber trembled beneath him as tendrils of darkness extended like the limbs of a colossal, conscious being. The shadows were no longer separate. They had become one with the core, a single, living intelligence aware of his every motion, every thought, every intention. Gotham was no longer just a city. It was a judge, a predator, and a teacher, all in one. Batman's silhouette appeared briefly in the flickering, debris-lit chamber. "This is it," he said. "The moment the city decides if you belong here. Remember what I taught you. Observation, patience, understanding. Don't strike blindly. The heart sees everything." Superman's jaw clenched as he surveyed the colossal form before him. Its shadows twisted in impossible angles, extending along the walls, floor, and ceiling. The air shimmered with raw energy, and faint whispers, echoes of past crimes, failures, and lost lives filled the chamber. Gotham's darkness was not just physical, it was psychological, probing his mind, challenging his morality, testing the very core of who he was. The first wave of tendrils struck with lightning speed, lashing out in coordinated strikes. Superman blocked and redirected them, not with raw strength, but with calculated precision. Each motion he made seemed to communicate with the city, to read and respond to the rhythm of its pulse. For the first time, he realized that fighting Gotham required symbiosis rather than domination. Batman's voice cut through the turmoil. "It's learning from you. Every move, every hesitation, every reaction feeds it. You need to anticipate its adaptation, not just counter it." Superman narrowed his eyes, focusing. He slowed his movements, observing the patterns hidden within the chaos. The tendrils retracted slightly, almost as if acknowledging his awareness. He struck strategically, guiding sections of the shadows into collapsing pillars and narrow corridors. Each maneuver weakened the extensions, while avoiding destruction that might provoke the city's core into further aggression. A deep vibration echoed from the center of the chamber, resonating in Superman's chest. The colossal form shifted, reforming into a more cohesive, almost humanoid silhouette, with eyes or something resembling them glowing with awareness. Superman could feel the intelligence behind those glowing depths. It understood him, assessed him, and was now preparing its ultimate test. Batman's voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "The heart responds to intent, to clarity of purpose. Act with confidence, and it may yield. Hesitate, and it will consume you." Superman exhaled, centering himself. He realized that this confrontation was more than a battle. It was a dialogue, a negotiation with the living soul of Gotham. Every decision, every action carried weight. He could not merely fight, he had to engage, to communicate, to prove his worth without words. The colossal form lunged, tendrils striking in synchronized waves. Superman moved with deliberate intent, anticipating the strikes, redirecting them into environmental traps Batman had subtly arranged. The shadows faltered momentarily, revealing the vulnerability of the central core. Superman seized the opportunity. Approaching the heart of the city itself, a low, resonant hum filled the chamber, echoing like a heartbeat. The whispers intensified, carrying images, emotions, and memories of Gotham's history. Superman could feel the pain, the corruption, the lost lives, and even the faint glimmer of hope. He understood then, this was not just a test of strength or intellect, it was a test of character. Could he comprehend the suffering and resilience of an entire city and rise above it, even as a god among men? Batman's shadow loomed beside him. "This is it. The heart knows everything. Show it why you're here." Superman's eyes glowed brighter, chest heaving as he focused not on destruction, but on understanding. He reached out not physically, but mentally aligning his presence with the rhythm of Gotham's pulse. The shadows hesitated. The colossal form stopped, towering in place, glowing faintly as though considering him. And in that suspended moment, Superman realized the truth. The city wasn't trying to kill him. It was testing him, shaping him, preparing him to become something greater than even he had imagined, a protector who could endure not just threats from without, but the darkness that lived within Gotham itself. What happens when you stop fighting a civvy and start listening to it? Superman could feel the living pulse of Gotham beneath him, a rhythm that carried centuries of pain, fear, and resilience. The colossal form, once an impossible, shifting mass of darkness, now seemed to breathe with him, its tendrils suspended mid-air, as if waiting for him to make the next move. He realized then that the battle had never truly been about strength. It had been about connection, understanding, trust. Batman's voice cut through the tense silence, steady and firm. "You're not here to conquer it, Clark. You're here to prove that you can carry it without being crushed. The city has tested many, and all have failed. It'll test you until you adapt, or until it decides you're unworthy." Superman's gaze swept the chamber, taking in the massive walls, the pulsating shadows, and the labyrinthine tunnels branching off into darkness. He could feel the intentions of the city in each vibration, each whisper, each subtle shift in the air. The shadows moved again, but this time slower, as if awaiting his decision rather than attacking blindly. He understood. This was the pivotal moment. He stepped forward deliberately, not to strike, but to demonstrate presence, control, and respect. "I am here not to destroy you," he said, voice steady, echoing faintly in the vast chamber. "I am here to understand, to protect, to become part of this city without breaking it." His shadows recoiled, then shifted. The colossal form reassembled, itself into a humanoid silhouette, taller than any building above Gotham, yet composed entirely of the city's darkness. Its glowing eyes regarded him, aware, intelligent, calculating. Superman felt a profound recognition. The city knew him not just as an alien or a hero, but as someone capable of understanding its essence. Batman's shadowed figure moved closer, silent but vigilant. "Good," he said quietly. "Now show it you're worthy. Intent matters more than power. Strength alone won't earn its trust." Superman raised his hands slightly, not as a gesture of aggression, but of alignment. He allowed the energy of the city to flow around him, feeling its history, its pain, its dark humor, its unyielding will. He sensed the countless lives lost to crime, the flickering sparks of hope, the unrelenting heartbeat of Gotham itself. And in that connection, he found a kind of power deeper than his own superhuman strength, clarity that transcended physical force. The colossal form shifted, again, moving closer, tendrils curling and extending like a giant embrace rather than an attack. Superman maintained his focus, unwavering, matching its rhythm. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, the shadows began to recede, forming channels and pathways that allowed him to navigate the chamber without resistance. The city was testing him, yes, but now it was also acknowledging him. Batman's voice was sharp but approving. "It's reacting to your presence, not your power. That's how you survive here. That's how you earn the city's respect." Superman exhaled, feeling the oppressive weight of the chamber lift slightly. He realized that the colossal form was no longer a threat, not in the way he had feared. It had accepted his intent, recognized his capacity for understanding, and now tentatively began to cooperate with him. A faint hum vibrated through the tunnels, almost melodic now, resonating with a sense of ancient wisdom and quiet authority. The shadows moved in patterns that suggested guidance rather than attack, and the core of Gotham pulsed in harmony with him. For the first time, Superman felt that he was not merely a visitor or invader, he was an ally, a participant in the living city's complex dance of darkness and light. Batman stepped back, his figure blending into the shadows. "You're learning," he said quietly. "But remember, Gotham never stops testing. Today you've passed one trial. Tomorrow, the city may demand more, always more." Superman nodded, feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration. He had faced monsters, tyrants, cosmic beings, but Gotham had taught him something different. Patience, understanding, and the humility required to protect a city that fought back in ways no other place could. And as the shadows receded fully, leaving the chamber in relative calm, a new realization struck him. He hadn't just survived Gotham's heart, he had begun to truly understand it. And in that understanding lay the possibility not only of saving lives, but of guiding a city that had never truly trusted anyone to stand above its darkness. What does it mean to be accepted by a city that has rejected every hero before you? Superman stood in the chamber, the colossal form of Gotham's heart now pulsing gently, its shadows receding into the walls as if yielding. The city had tested him, pushed him to the limits of strength, mind, and morality, and yet it had not destroyed him. It had acknowledged him, but acknowledgement was only the beginning. Acceptance required more. It demanded vigilance, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to a darkness that never truly slept. Batman's silhouette emerged from the shadows, cape flowing as if it were part of the darkness itself. "You've done well," he said, voice calm, but carrying the weight of years of experience. "Most would have been consumed by now. But don't mistake this for victory. Gotham doesn't give up its secrets lightly. It tests, adapts, and endures. You've only just begun to earn its trust." Superman looked around the chamber, feeling the pulse of the city beneath him, resonating through the stone, through the shadows, through every echo of past and present. He could sense the layers of Gotham, the crime, the corruption, the fear, but also the flickers of hope, the courage that persisted despite impossible odds, the resilience that allowed the city to survive in spite of everything. For the first time, he understood why Batman had chosen to remain here, why he had devoted his life to protecting a city that seemed almost designed to punish him. The colossal form pulsed again, this time more deliberately, almost rhythmically, as if it were communicating in a language beyond words. Superman focused, aligning his perception with the city's cadence. He could feel the intent now, subtle, but undeniable. Gotham was not merely a city to defend, it was a living, sentient entity that required guidance as much as it demanded protection. Batman's eyes met his, sharp and piercing. "You understand, no? The city isn't just walls and streets. It's a force. You respect it, and it will follow. Underestimate it, and it will destroy you. That's the lesson most never learn." Superman's chest tightened as he absorbed the truth. The battles he had fought before world-ending villains, cosmic forces, alien invasions, had tested his strength and courage. But Gotham had tested something deeper, his capacity to understand, to adapt, to empathize, and to endure a darkness that had no end. It was a lesson in humility, in patience, and in the delicate balance between fear and hope. From the depths of the chamber, a subtle vibration rose, like a heartbeat, steady and unwavering. The shadows that had once assaulted him now moved in harmony, forming channels that guided him and Batman toward the exit. The city had accepted him not as an invader, not as a savior, but as a participant in its living, breathing struggle. Batman's voice broke the silence. "You've survived the core, Clark. You've faced the heart of Gotham and lived. Few ever do. But remember this, the city doesn't stop testing. Every day, every night, the shadows will return. The core will awaken again, and you must be ready, not just to fight, but to understand." Superman nodded, feeling both exhaustion and resolve. He had proven himself, yes, but he had also learned something that no battle on Earth or beyond could teach. True heroism was not about power. It was about understanding the world you protect, even when that world seemed impossible to save. As they ascended from the tunnels into the streets above, the city seemed to breathe with them, shadows retreating into the alleyways, but leaving behind a faint sense of respect, a quiet acknowledgement. Gotham was still dark, still dangerous, still full of secrets, but Superman now understood its rhythm, its heartbeat, and its unyielding will. Batman's cape shifted in the wind as he turned to him. "You've done what few could. Remember it, and never forget why you're here." Superman looked down at the city, lights flickering through the darkness, and whispered, almost to himself, "I'm not just here to save Gotham. I'm here to understand it, and to protect it, no matter what it demands." The city pulsed beneath him, steady, unwavering, alive. And in that pulse, Superman felt a connection that transcended fear, power, and chaos, a bond with Gotham itself, forged in shadow and trial, unbreakable and eternal. What does it mean to become part of a city, to walk its streets, not as a visitor, but as a guardian entwined with its very soul? Superman stood atop one of Gotham's highest towers, the wind whipping around him, the city sprawling beneath in an intricate tapestry of darkness and light, the battles below, the shadows, the colossal forms, and the intelligence of the city itself were no longer just challenges, they had become teachers, shaping him into a protector who could endure what few others could. Batman appeared beside him, his presence as silent and imposing as ever. "You've passed the core," he said. "But remember, that doesn't mean the city will ever stop testing you. Gotham's heart is patient. He observes, he waits, and it rewards those who understand it without seeking to dominate it." Superman's gaze swept over the city. For years he had flown above Metropolis, seeing it from the air, knowing it was a place of hope, of possibility, of light. Gotham was different. Its shadows were alive. Its darkness was intentional, calculated, a living reflection of the fears and desires of its people. And now, after everything he had endured, he could sense it as a force, a living entity that could judge, challenge, and, ultimately, trust him. A flicker of movement caught his eye below. The remnants of the shadows that had assaulted him earlier now shifted quietly, almost reverently, receding into the alleys and sewers, yet always watching. Superman realized with a deep, resonant clarity, Gotham would never be fully tamed, nor should it be. It was a city of contradictions, darkness and light, fear and hope, despair and resilience, and he had learned to navigate it, not as a god imposing order, but as a guardian attuned to its heartbeat. Batman's voice, calm but edged with gravity, brought him back from the observation. "You survived the trials, Clark. You didn't just use your strength, you understood the city, respected it, and adapted. That's why you're standing here now. That's why Gotham has accepted you." Superman exhaled slowly, letting the wind wash over him. The weight of his experience in the tunnels, the confrontation with the colossal form, and the subtle communication with the city itself had left him exhausted, but also profoundly transformed. He felt the pulse of Gotham beneath him, steady, unwavering, a rhythm that was now partially his own. And then, in that quiet moment, a subtle, almost imperceptible pulse resonated from deep within the city, a reminder that the trials were never truly over. Gotham's heart had tested him, accepted him, and now watched, always aware, always ready. He understood that vigilance would be eternal, that understanding would be his ongoing challenge, and that respect for the city's complexity was the true measure of his role as its protector. Batman's figure shifted, fading into the shadows of the rooftop. "Remember this," he said, voice low. "Gotham is never defeated. It only endures, and so must you." Superman looked down once more at the city's sprawling streets, the flickering lights, the alleys full of whispers and secrets. He realized something profound. Gotham was not merely a city to be saved, was a living test of character, morality, and resilience, and in surviving its trials, he had not only proven himself as a hero, but had forged a bond with a city that few could ever comprehend. He flexed his hands, feeling the energy, the tension, and the life of the city thrumming through the air. "I will protect you," he whispered, his voice carrying conviction and reverence. "Not because you asked for it, not because you deserve it, but because you are Gotham. Understanding you is worth every trial." The city pulsed beneath him, dark yet alive, dangerous yet breathtaking, unforgiving yet unyielding, and in that pulse, Superman found purpose, clarity, and a connection that would endure far beyond any battle, far beyond any shadow, far beyond himself. Cliff had tested him, shaped him, and, ultimately, welcomed him not as a god, but as a guardian intertwined with its soul. And as the night stretched across the skyline, Superman soared above the city, feeling the heartbeat of Gotham in every shadow, every alley, every whisper of wind. He was no longer just an alien with extraordinary power. He was part of Gotham's story, its protector, and its witness to a darkness that demanded respect and courage in equal measure. The trials were over for now, but the city would always watch, and Superman would always be ready. The screen fades to black, the hum of Gotham's pulse lingering as a final reminder. Even in darkness, understanding can illuminate, and even a god can learn humility from a city that never stops testing. The end.